Good morning, folks. Delighted to be with you today. My name is Felicity McCarthy, and I'm really delighted to be here on behalf of the Entrepreneurs Academy to, I guess, facilitate such a fantastic morning ahead with Jackie speaking with Blaise, of course, sharing some of the fantastic insights that he has for us. And for those, I know there's many of you who have been on the coffee mornings already, and we're delighted to have you back, of course, and you'll be very familiar with the format. For those who maybe, if this is your first time with us, to give you an idea of how we'll operate today. So just so you're aware, you'll find that your mic has been muted, and that's fine. That is just so we can manage any background noise, etc. But we really encourage your participation. Today is all about getting your questions answered. So we'd love your questions on the chat. You will see that it gets very vibrant, and we love your comments and your questions. And Jackie will be putting those to Blaise as we go through. So I guess the other thing to just mention, of course, in terms of the format for this morning, Jackie will be chatting to Blaise. We'll be taking loads of questions, so really, keep them coming as you think of them. Later on in this session, we'll also, we really love the networking event. So we will be getting you guys, we'll be putting you into breakout rooms. So for those of you who haven't been in a breakout room before, don't worry, it's nothing too scary, but it will, once you go into the breakout rooms, your mics will work. So you'll be able to chat to each other. It's a great opportunity for you to meet people you may know already. And of course, people you may not know already. So great opportunity to network with other businesses in your, Kildare Leo. And the other thing is, at the end of that session, we'll be asking you as part of that interaction to think about themes that you guys specifically want to talk about. So then we put you into actually groups about particular themes that are of interest to you, and those themes will most likely come out of the discussions this morning. So anyway, that's a little bit of a rundown about how we'll be running this morning. So I don't want to delay any further, except to say very welcome indeed, and I'll hand you over to Jackie.
Thanks a million, Felicity. Good morning, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to see so many, over 80 people booked for this morning's event. I'm not a bit surprised, because anytime we engage with Blaise Brosnan, or actually mute that we have Blaise in a room, whether it's a physical or remote, there's also always a huge interest, because I suppose he's one of the most pragmatic people in business and business advice in the country. Always very practical in his approach. So, when I was looking at the kind of people I wanted to speak to during the current restrictions, he was top on my list. So I'm delighted to be having coffee with you this morning, Blaise. We're very much a national event this morning, because I'm working from Carlow. I know you're down in sunny Wexford. Tell us, is it sunny or is it snowy?
No, it's a nice morning here. Yeah, it's sunny southeast always,
Yeah. So as Felicity said, Blaise, what I'm gonna invite all our participants to do is maybe put some questions for you in the chat box, and as they come through, I'll field them to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's the best way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and therefore, rather than giving advice we feel people might have, we'll give the advice they're seeking. I suppose just for start, I don't know about you and your sense of how you see things, but I suppose we're now into phase 4 of a lockdown, really, in Kildare, and it's a little bit different, because last year we were frantically engaging with the department. The department were in the news a lot, as was the Minister for Enterprise. There was an awful lot of funds available. There was an awful lot of stimulus announcements. And not so much that we don't have supports available now, but more what I'm thinking is, do we feel as business owners that things are quiet? They're quieter than they were previously. And I have a great sense that people were busy doing and getting ready. I wonder, do you feel our businesses maybe not so active even during restriction as they would in 2020?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, and I think the picture is very varied around the country, and it's very varied between one types of industry and another. So it's not one brush kind of represents everything, right? Now, if you listen to the media, they have one brush that kind of covers all disaster, basically. But that's not the overall story, in my view, anyway, right? And the people I come across. If you look at where we are today, Jackie, versus we did this coffee morning, I think was in November, December period, right? I think we're actually in a better position today than when we had this last November. And the reason for that is that now we have a race. At that stage, we didn't have a race. There's a race now between vaccine and virus. But at least from once there's a race, there's two players in that race, or two competitors in that race. Whereas last October, November, when we spoke before, there was only the virus in the race itself, right? So looking forward, it depends now, it's like a marathon, I think. It depends now on the relative speed of each, really, okay? So with the lockdowns and all that, we're trying to slow down one competitor, and we're trying to, I suppose, enhance and speed up the vaccine situation, right? So it's a race now, and anytime there's a race on, there's always going to be a winner at the end of the race. And certainly from where I'm sitting and the people I'm dealing with on an ongoing basis, I think this, like all cycles turn. And all cycles move on, right? It's just a question of time, right?
Okay.
And like the main learning point I have picked up during this last 12 months is how resilient entrepreneurs are. Like if you take everybody around the virtual table here this morning, right? Every one of you, it's a victory to have arrived at this point, in my view, right? If anyone told us last March what was ahead of us, really, and would we survive or would we be around? I think many of us wouldn't have given and anticipated that we would have got to the point where we are today as pretty well undamaged as we can be, okay? Now, obviously it impacts on different people, different business, different ways. I've no idea now how many companies and business I've interacted with since March, but quite a few, maybe 100 or maybe more, I don't know. And I would say that 80% of those, now maybe I'm dealing with a cohort of people that's not representative, but 80% of the people I've dealt with over the last 12 months are going to come out at the other end.
Yeah.
Now, they'll come out different, of course, but they'll come out at the other end. And I think that's critical,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I suppose if we do the analogy, last year, if we even take our domestic lives, I suppose, I don't know how many hot presses got cleaned out last year, or utility rooms, or the garage got cleared out, or the wardrobe was reestablished. You only have to look at adverts or Facebook Marketplace to see it is like a garage sale of people's possessions. And you've all that done, and an awful lot of people did similar in their business. They cleaned out the stock room, Blaise. They did the paperwork that they hadn't done before. What do you think they should be doing now?
Yeah, I think there's three time frames that everybody around the table here should be kind of working off, I think, going forward, right? One is the immediate time frame between now and some semblance of the lockdown being eased, okay? I'll come back in each of these in a minute, right? I think the second time frame to look at, which is a bit longer, will be kind of the post vaccine, when that race is starting to be won. And I think the longer term thing then is looking at the business strategically, right? Which is very important. I'll cover the three of those, right? So the immediate thing is obviously whatever variables are within our control at the moment, we need to manage those and adjust them. And if you look at say your profit and loss account in business, and go through each line item on the profit and loss account and look at what are the variables within each of those line items have I some control over, okay? And if I just maybe take a couple of the top ones, if you take your sales for argument's sake, okay, your revenue line, that's made up of two things. It's made up of the number of widgets you sell by the average price per widget. So look at that and say, okay, is there something I can do about the number of widgets I'm selling? Is there something I can do about the pricing of those widgets? Okay. And no, I've yet to come across, I'm around a long time now involved in business, and I've yet to come across what might be classified as a perfect business. It doesn't exist. I've long stopped even looking to try and see a business that's perfect, because no business is perfect. There's so many moving parts in all our business that at best we have an imperfect kind of process, okay? Now that's a good news story rather than a bad news story, in the sense of that allows us to have some, I think, fine tuning of some of the variables that have within our control, right? And I could give you lots of practical examples of cases I come across every day where people, see, there's two things. We can react differently. We can say, listen to the media and all of that and say everything is terrible and all of that. That's one reaction. Or we can say, I'm on my own payroll. I'm responsible for the creditors in my business. I'm responsible for everybody that's dependent on me, whether that's suppliers, whether it's revenue, whether it's your payroll, whatever it might be, right? And it beholds me to actually become better at managing those variables. And I believe that no matter what variable you identify, Jackie, in any of our business, there's at least another 5% twist to be got out of that in some shape or form. It may not be easy, it may not be very obvious, but believe me, none of you are so perfect, and I'm not, and our business certainly not, so perfect that there isn't another twist to be got in several different areas of our business, okay? So that'd be the immediate thing, to try and look at that. The slightly longer situation then is, you know, what is your plan for your business? What's your action plan for your business? You know, kind of, let's say for the second half of 2021, okay? Because there was no point in coming through the hardship of the last 12 months if it wasn't as a baseline to move forward from. Now, the variables that will be kind of probably impacting on us quite negatively in the second half of 2021, probably the first half of 2022, will be a lot of the government supports will be withdrawn gradually, probably. A lot of the money that's being warehoused by the revenue and that at the moment, tax and things like that, some of that will come back into play. So I think that's actually a more dangerous period for businesses when a lot of that kind of support that Jackie spoke about earlier on, when a lot of that actually is either withdrawn or kind of diluted out or whatever. And I think that'll have kind of major cash flow problems for lots of businesses, right? But let's assume you can manage your way through that, which I believe most businesses will. Then the big purpose, you know, what you're trying to build into the future. You know, what's your vision for your business going forward? What legacy, and by legacy now I'm not talking about money, but what you want to leave after you. You know, what's your exit strategy, even if it's 5-10 years down the road, whatever it is, right? Because if we haven't a big common purpose, we're not going to be able to get through some of the barriers between now and then. And the business that I come across that tend to be more successful, you know, they have this big purpose that they're trying to build, and it's like a magnet. It kind of pulls them through. And, you know, do they have doubts? Of course they do. You know, I was on to somebody only half an hour ago there, and she's just having a particular bad week because lots of things have just hit her this week, right? And we'll all have those kind of downtimes. But I just called her Mary and I said, Mary, you know, you're on quite an attractive long-term journey. And these are some of the pains and these are some of the investments you have to make in order to be there at the end of the period. And some people are doing fantastic against all the odds. We have a girl, I'll leave you in the Jackie. We have a girl on one of the programs at the moment, and she's in the retail business. The most difficult business of the whole lot, right, at the moment, because she's in the clothing area, in the fashion area, and I was talking to her last Monday night there, and they had the best January they've ever had, even though they're closed. Because they just pivoted their whole kind of business model, and they really went after it. But not long did they go after it, but they made it work for them. So people, you'll never hear about her in the media. You'll always hear about the one that's closed or the one that's in trouble. So my strong advice to all of you, and I know quite a few of you probably around the table, will you for God's sake turn off the news? To destroy you, absolutely destroy you. Because it's all negative, 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 and to wear you out, right? Once a day is enough. I listen to news headlines at 7 o'clock in the morning. I never go near it for the rest of the day. I assume that the world won't have blown up in the meantime. If it does, I'll probably hear about it. So each of us is responsible. The big difference between the majority of the people around the table here this morning and the 2.1 million well, at least 1.7 or 1.8 million people that have clocked in for work this morning. Every one of you, including myself, all of us, we're on our own payroll. Never forget that. We're not on anybody else's payroll. We're on our own payroll. And when you're an entrepreneur on your own payroll, that carries both responsibilities, but it also carries possibilities. And you wouldn't be an entrepreneur if you weren't driven by possibilities. And I guarantee you there'll be good times after this as well. Sorry, Jackie, I went on a bit there. But...
No, absolutely. And it's so true. And it's practical. Those practical advice pieces, I think, it's been very challenging for businesses, and I speak to them every day to think strategically at the moment, because they perceive, and yes, they're listening to the news and there's so many variables. But I remember doing in a different career an awful lot of work with people who were unemployed. And so they were on a benefit. And I would ask them when they would come to a coaching session with me, how many hours this week did you spend putting in to working on getting a job? And some people would be very delighted with themselves, and they'd put up their hand and they'd say, well, I spent at least 4 hours this week looking for a job. What did you do? I trawled through the papers. I walked in and I asked 2 people. And another person will say, God, I'm sure I did an hour every day, so that I did 5 hours. And I asked, surely as an unemployed person, you have 35 or 37 working hours in a week. Your task at the moment should be to spend it, invest that time into getting the job. And I think as business owners, even us, and we were talking earlier before we opened the room, we all get challenged to get up, get dressed, maybe put a bit of makeup on in the situation we're in. But I see now more than ever, Blaise, an opportunity for people to do the stuff they never had time to do on their business. And that if they invested in this time, and I see Anna Teague there, and Anna had a question, a really good one. She's unsure whether she should be focusing on working on her existing clientele, Blaise, or growing to get new ones.
Yeah, good question. But it's a question that applies both in good times and in bad times, right? We should always be sowing new seeds, in my view, right? And by new seeds, I'm saying, even if you're going very well, you have to make an assumption that there'll be some attrition and fall off at the other end, right? I remember having a professor years ago in 20, and he used to say to us, remember, you need to keep front loading your business because there'll always be a bit of offload on the other side, right? And there's a company that I know very well, And one of the business objectives they have set for themselves, and they've set this every year for the last 50 years, the very same business objective. And the objective is that 5% of next year's sales has to come from a customer we currently don't have. Now, they use 5%. They generally beat it and have beaten it very well over the years. But if you're front loading your business by a factor of 5% or 10%, whatever the figure is, right? And it's part of the objective that you're setting yourself for, right? Then what you're doing is you're freshening up your business all the time. Now, some business, and I just look around the table here, you might have actually very few customers. You might need very few customers. So it may not be quite that handy, but each of your customers are also growing. So one of the things that we find over the years really is that if you have a couple of key customers who are going somewhere, and by going somewhere, I mean that they're growing their business, can you become a strategic partner with them on that journey? In other words, can you grow with them, parallel with them? And I've seen some fantastic businesses growing over the years based on keeping pace with some of the major customers. Now, that's applicable to certain types of business. For others, that won't be the case. It's just kind of raw getting new customers or whatever it is, right? But I think, Jackie, you mentioned that there's a bit of time now to think and kind of reflect about where we are in our business. But more importantly, where are we going forward with the business, right? And I think a critical question that all of us need to keep asking ourselves in relation to our business and our business model is, do we have an attractive proposition? Is our business model attractive? Because, you know, some business out there are attractive businesses to be in. Other businesses out there are just bad businesses to be in, okay? I classify them as being bad businesses to be in. And what's a bad business? A bad business is a business that's too easy to get into. If you're in a business that's easy to get into, every gobshite down the, excuse the language, every cowboy down the road is capable of getting into. You know what happens when cowboys get together and have a few drinks? They shoot each other. In business, what happens in that scenario? Everybody destroys each other's margin or whatever. And I think that people should look at the challenge and the opportunity of COVID, just to stand back a small bit and say, okay, what game do I want to play going forward? Is it the same game that I played in the past? Or do I want to have a variation of that? Or maybe even a new game, okay? And for any, you know, anybody that have been kind of exposed to the Michael Porter kind of thinking of that along the way or whatever, he talks about differentiation. How can you differentiate yourself away from the pack? Because if we're only like if we're just another Me Too operation, that's not an attractive proposition going forward.
Yeah.
So we have to try and differentiate ourselves in a way that's meaningful and that we can turn into commerce.
And that leads us into Stephen O'Callaghan's question, Stephen Farrell O'Callaghan. And he's asking, and I suppose it is in the very busy world that is marketing and how to differentiate yourselves. You know, how do you balance targeting new business and doing it respectfully, given restrictions, other than the usual tools of marketing? What else can a business do to remain live and relevant? Again, given the restrictions that are in place, we need new, fresh ideas.
Yeah, again, I think one of the talents and skills that people are starting to lose over the last 10 years is the capability of going face-to-face, whether that's physically face-to-face or picking up the phone. I think there's a cohort of people coming through in business who are hiding behind social media and emails and all of this it's all very important to a point, right? But we want to be very careful, particularly a small business. And if your business is big ticket items, we want to be very careful that we don't lose the skill of actually going face to face or by phone or whatever. It's too easy to bang off an email to somebody. It's too easy to put up a blog on social media or whatever and hope that the whole thing. Lads, why don't you pick up a phone? You know, and we're getting out of there's a cohort of particularly young people coming through, and they, I think they're going to have a problem down the road.
Yeah.
I told you this story before, Jackie, I'm sure, but I came across a guy down in Waterford the year before last now, I think, and we were having lunch one day, and this guy is head of an organization, all that, and I knew he was in bad form. And I said to him, I call him John, I said, John, what's the problem? He said, and you laugh at this now when I tell you. He said, I got an email, a text this morning from my wife to tell me our marriage is finished. Fucking a text. Now, what does that tell us, lads? I see people and they have issues in their business, and they're hiding, they're trying to negotiate through emails and social media and all of this. It's all shadow boxing. There's nobody going in for the punch. And I would say, no matter where you are in your business is always done between people. Two companies never do business with each other. It's people in one company interfacing with people in another company business. Now, the channel that's joining the two will vary. Now, if you're a small ticket item type of business, you can't go face to face with everything, okay? And I understand that. So, but if you're a big ticket item, what I'm saying is very, very correct, right? And what happens or what works for one doesn't necessarily work for somebody else, okay? I'm not anti-social media by any means, but I see a lot of wastage of time and resource around social media out there by business. And, they're satisfying their own conscience that they're doing something because they spend the exact number of hours on social media. But what's the hit rate? Is it working for you? Business people always work on the basis of ROI, return on investment. Okay? So if something is not working for you, it's time to do, to have a go at something else or whatever, right? And I believe, and we see this a lot in family type of business, we see that something that worked well in the past, the formula that worked well for them in the past, because the mood of the market has changed or whatever it might be, they often hold on to that formula too long. Yeah. That's what often leads to problems.
Yeah, I was laughing there, Blaise, because I'm laughing as if I heard it for the first time, because I remember sitting with you in the Osprey and you sharing that marriage breakup and the text story with me. And yeah. I'm laughing because, yes, I found it humorsome, but also because it seems so long since we sat in the Osprey. And
which is a pity, yeah.
It goes to the point of how important, I mean, our relationship is over 25 years old, but it certainly wouldn't have been built on the kind of activity we have had this year. And an awful lot of feed coming through the chat line is, the appreciation of somebody talking to them at the moment. It's even rarer. Equally, writing a letter, a physical letter and a €1 stamp. I mean, the joy to get a letter, and not a DPD, something from ASOS or whatever, a proper letter of communication. It's so valuable to each other. Kira Burke has a similar question, Blaise, but it's a little bit twist, and I'll read it out because it touches on Brexit. Good morning, Blaise. Similar question to Anna around potential new clients. Working in the IT industry, how should we approach new clients, especially with Brexit? I'm finding pushback from sales leads to invest in their IT infrastructure. Any thoughts? And before I let you answer that, it goes back to the joy of somebody saying, hello, how are you? Rather than somebody, because if I got a call right now with somebody trying to sell me something, I'd probably give pushback too.
Yeah, and that's the reality out there, right? But when you mention letter there, a little tactic, I don't like to call these things tricks, but a little tactic that might work for somebody for some things is if you want to make contact with somebody and the normal channels, or what we considered normal channels now, are not working for us. And you revert to a letter, for argument's sake, or some sort of a thing like that, right? But put it in an envelope, but don't type the address on the envelope. Handwrite the envelope. And there's a better chance that that will arrive in whatever appropriate desk. And whoever the guy said, fuck it, this could be from anyone, so I better open it rather than my PA or whoever might open it, just in case it might be personal or whatever. And you have a better chance of getting to someone like that. And all you're doing is you're asking for permission to make contact.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be pushy it that you're trying to sell something. You're just trying to open up a channel to build some sort of a communication, whatever. You know, and that's why I said earlier, we need to sow seeds. We're coming into the spring now. And, you know, some seeds will, you know, in the Gospels it said, you know, some seeds will fall in good ground and germinate, some will fall in bad ground and die, the buds will take more of it or whatever. But if we don't continue to sow seeds by whatever mechanism is appropriate in the patch we're in, then we're not going to freshen up our business. I come from an agriculture kind of food background, and one of the things that I learned in life along the way is I've never seen seed to germinate in a bag. It has to be sown. And, you know, it's the same way in business. We need to get the seed out of the bag, and whatever way, like if you start from basics and say, whoever the caller was there, you know, who's the target customer? That's where we always start. Okay, who is it? You know, sometimes it might be a name, sometimes it might be a category or whatever, but that's where we start from. Who are we targeting? So that's the first question. The second question we have to ask ourselves is, what pain have they now are likely to have that we have a solution for? Okay, so if we don't know them, if we don't know what that target is, then we're only going pure scattergun approach, right? And for a small business, like any of the business around the table here, my view is that we have a very limited resource. And, you know, you've had the concept of guerrilla marketing, right? In a way, we're like the guerrilla. We can't be like the soldier who has lots of ammunition. We have only one bullet in the magazine because of our scarcity of resource. So we have to be far more precise about who we're after, what pain they have. And the third question we have to ask ourselves is, what's the best way of communicating or getting communication with them so that eventually we can influence them? So you start from the end back rather than from where you are out, in my view. Now, is it easy? Of course, it's not easy. Will you make progress? You will make progress if you're determined enough to do it.
Yeah, and speaking about sowing seeds and going back to the envelope and handwritten, you know, I'd be a big advocate to finding out the person's name above all costs. You know, pick up a phone, look them up, get their name. And the whole idea about using that time and using the time till we can be more out and active, you know, 10 people a week that I'm going to reach out to, that I'm going to start a relationship, almost like a courtship, Blaise.
Yeah.
I can remember that part, almost like the courting, the ballroom romance, and building that warmth and just reaching out and saying, look, I know it's a challenging time for us all. Hope you're doing, if I can help you in any way. But, you know, there will be a time to ask about the sale longer down. And I suppose I'm seeing Helen Gary here has a question on LinkedIn. And I know that John Mulcahy, who works in our office, just put up a piece around contacting our website. We do have Google workshops in partnership with the Chamber, and we also have ongoing social media activity around the skills in LinkedIn if you want to. And if anybody in the group here can actually provide Helen there with some advice on her business cards, do populate your details in the chat box. I see, Noel is flying through all our courses. In fairness, there is a wealth. We never had so much putting on as we have, and business advice and Brexit advice going forward. And again,
yeah, sorry, I've just put up the website there to show people what you have available. There's a huge agenda, including lots of social media ones as well.
Yeah, and you see back there, Felicity, it talks about what is booked out. Writing a business plan for funding applications. At any stage, if any of our clients see booked out, send an email to us, indicate your interest, and we will build on that to provide another program. Never let booked out deter you. Come back to us, let us know that you need something, and we'll get it out, particularly at the moment. You know, I have to say, just at this point, you know, a great thank you to my team in the Leo who are doing Trojan work remotely at the moment. Blaise, I suppose I'm looking at wait now, and I just get social media. Ruth Murphy in Elevate Marketing. We've done great work with Ruth. I know that Tara Lane was on earlier saying hello, Blaise, as well. Social media is great for helping business to get warm introductions and to give your business a personality, but has to always be followed up with a face-to-face from the business. That's where the real relationship starts. And even, you know, whether that is Zoom or Teams or indeed a phone call, you know, and for somebody not to feel that you're reaching out not to genuinely connect with them and not to connect with their money, I suppose, is the important part. Because and to say, look, I've this service, and when you're ready, I'm here to help you. And often, is there any way we can get this relationship started? And we'll talk about the bill later, Blaise.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe just 2 points there that might be helpful as well. First of all, you're probably talking to the wrong person when you talk about social media too much, because you need to be talking to a younger person than me, really, in relation to that, right? But social media, no different to any other channel to the market. It's a tool, and it's a tool that needs to be used in a way that's appropriate for one's kind of a passage into that target market, whatever it is, right? So it's, you know, be careful. I just wrote down the word there when you're talking, Jackie, selfish, okay? In business, we need to be selfish. As we grew up, we were trained not to be selfish, but in business, you have to be professionally selfish. That's how you, and selfish for your own bottom line, selfish for the strength of your own balance sheet. But you need to be professionally selfish. So be very careful, all of you. Remember, you're all on your own payroll this morning. Be very careful that you don't get too sucked into this greater good for everybody. And that's what worries me a lot about we're all in this together, and with all this and with all that, or whatever. That's fine for somebody if they're on somebody else's payroll to be going on a lot of that kind of stuff, right? You have to be commercially selfish for your bottom line, for your top line, your bottom line, the strength of your business. Now, it's not a nice thing to say, but it's facts.
Well, Blaise, the question I have here is really relevant to that, and probably one or two that we'll take another question and then we'll be wrapping up. But Geraldine says, our UK prices have increased, and this question is direct to what you're saying. Our UK prices have increased due to customs clearance and surcharges from suppliers. It's not huge and can be absorbed. In this climate, it's very difficult to raise prices for our very loyal customers. Do we pass it on now? Long process for tenders won previously.
Okay.
Do we take it and raise prices at a later, better date?
Yeah, a very good question. And a couple of things I would say in relation to that, Jackie. First of all, if price is the only reason that somebody is dealing with you, you haven't established much of a linkage to that client. That's the first thing I'd say to you. Second thing I'd say to you is, If the only perceived advantage you have out there on the market is based on price, you'll never create wealth. This is why I'm coming back again. If we can lock in our customers or tie in or influence our customers to be dealing with us for more than just price, we have a problem. We have a weak business. We have an unattractive business. I know you don't like hearing these things now this morning, but you're here and you're here to try and get some value for this hour that you're on, right? Now, I can approach this two ways. I can say you're all fantastic and all that, which you are, and we're all in this together, and we get out and we'll all be plumbers each other and all that. That's one approach. That's not, I'm trying to give you value. I'm trying to challenge you in relation to where you are. And I'm saying you need to be selfish. So in answer to that question there, the extra costs that are coming in through the customs and all of that there, of course, they have to be passed on. You can't absorb them. You're not a voluntary organization, lads. And if one of the things, again, I'm around a long time, right? And one of the things I have, I understand from being around a long time and being involved in lots of different business, is that nothing is as price sensitive as we think it is. But it suits us if we're poor salespeople, we're not as confident about ourselves as we should. We hide behind price. And I think that's wrong. But you look at the people out there who tend to have commercially better business, who tend to create wealth for themselves in the long term. They're not as quite as sensitive about this whole pricing thing. I guarantee you everyone around the table here, and I don't know all your business by any means, but I would suggest that at least 80% of you around the table here should seriously look at your pricing, but pricing up, not down.
You love this. Geraldine says, thank you, Blaise. I knew that was the answer, but I needed a talking to.
Yeah, good. But not just Geraldine. A lot more Geraldines around in my view.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Jackie, the first book I published, the title of it was You're the Limiting Factor. Believe me, lads, we're all the limiting factor in this space. We're not as good at negotiation as we should be. We're not as brave as we should be. You have to be brave in business, not reckless, but you have to be brave. And you have to be commercially selfish, in my view. Now, there's nicer words than all these words. But I come from Kerry, and we have a very limited vocabulary down there. And we are simple people, and we only understand simple things, right? But they work. They work.
Okay. Look, Blaise, as always, absolutely fantastic to talk to you. You know, so many people delighted with your support. And just to say, we've just wrapped up another management development program with Blaise. Do send on expressions of interest if you want to join us again on a longer program with Blaise. My colleague John Mulcahy will look after him. I see my colleague Adrian Fries has just put up a bit of a notice there on, again, reminding people any advice on VAT, whether you're purchasing product in from the UK or across the land bridge, we've VAT going on. With VAT workshops, we also have mentoring in the subject of taxes and adequate certification and so forth. And I think that's about it. And we'll keep a track of all these questions coming in, Blaise.
Okay.
And I'll get them to you. But again, the invitation is there. If people want to go on the next management development, send on the expression of interest, and we'll be in contact in the Leo. We also, I suppose, just to remind everybody to check out our website, and a new lunchtime series that I want to make you all aware of. I'm thrilled to be working with Jerry Duffy. Jerry Duffy is the founder of Momentum, a national conference, indeed an international conference on leadership and management skills as well. And he's doing a lunchtime series called Lunchtime Lessons for Leaders. Jerry, resilient himself, Jerry has ran 32 marathons in 32 days. No mean feat, and he'll sure share that story with you. If It's free of charge starting tomorrow. Bring your lunch along, pull up a chair, and from 1 to 2, you'll get great insights from Jerry over the 8-week period.
I have an idea that I believe will help you achieve all of your goals. This idea has won Olympic gold medals.
Okay, Felicity, thanks for that. Blaise, thanks a million for joining us this morning. We will be in touch again. Thank you.
Can I make one point there, Jackie? Just take a second, right? This cycle will move on, lads. It will move on. All cycles move on. There is a race on now between the two V's, the vaccine versus the virus. My hope and my judgment call is that the vaccine will win that race. And as it's sketching up and starting to win, I think that you'll see a completely different trading environment out there. If you look at the deposits in the banks at the moment by individuals, there's just short of 20 billion more on deposit today than there was last March. And my view and my assumption going forward is, as soon as there's a bit of a certainty about the winning of that race, I think a lot of that money will come back out, and there's a pent-up demand there to spend that money. And I think myself will be in for to be a bit like the SIA money way back that created the Celtic Tiger. I feel we'll get a big boost, and the challenge for us is, are we going to be ready to exploit that? Okay, thanks, Jackie, for
thank you so much, Blaise. And thank you to everyone for joining this morning. I'm going to hand over to Felicity now. I'm going to talk you through the chat rooms. Thanks a million, Blaise. Thanks, everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Blaise. Yeah, an absolute wealth of advice and inspiration. And I think a lot of people, you know, the comments on the chat were just how motivating and kind of really thought-provoking your answers were. So thank you so much for that. And again, I'd love to just give Jerry Duffy a plug, a fellow Westmeath man and a fellow Midlands person. From being from Westmeath, I know Jerry from before he was running 32 marathons. So, you know, he's just so impressive and so inspirational. So couldn't recommend that more highly. You're, you know, very lucky to have him at your disposal.